You're talking about Meacham's Crab Meat
His wife,
Caucus.
Keith.
What is the Crab Meat Caucus?
Now, Meacham, John Meacham, your friend and all of our friends, can be a little bit sarcastic sometimes. But it is
wordy as well.
Wordy.
Yeah.
But it is to his great, benefit that his wife and I have done lots of entertaining on his behalf and hosted parties for him and with him and all kind of things. Because imagine if Meacham was planning his own party. So when we get into that mode, he sort of derisively calls us the Crab Meat Caucus.
Was legendary writer Julia Reed on Morning Joe in 2013. Julia passed away Friday after battling cancer. She was 59 years old, and according to our next guest, she was a tsunami of talent, charm, and energy. Let's bring in historian, fellow friend of Julia's, John Meacham. He's the author of the new book titled His Truth is Marching On, John Lewis and the Power of Hope.
I like how he called her a foreign correspondent in her own country.
I know. If we tried to invent a character like Julia, John wrote, nobody would have believed it. She was a tsunami of talent, charm, and energy. She could write about anything and make it sing. Her distinctive voice was at once affectionate and arch, a tough combination to pull off. And John, I've got to say, at least when she was around us, she had a lot of topics, Julia did, that she loved to cover, but none that she always went back to with more love and affection than her little brother, Meacham.
Well, I've not heard her say, imagine what it would be like if I planned a party, which is a good point, because it would be like, a used book sale. So, look, Julia, and we'd all read aloud. Julia was a Renaissance woman. That distinctive, amazing, smoky, Scotch-inflected voice, which will ring in our hearts and our minds forever. I spoke to her Wednesday or Thursday, and I was just told I can't directly quote her, which is because of family standards on the air. But she was the William Shakespeare of profanity. She could do things with profanity that with an iambic pentameter. And it was my father-in-law once said Julia could turn. The only person he knew who could turn a perfectly lovely dinner into the Alamo. And there's a lot to that. She was a master of prose. She was a master of great living. Most important, she was a master of friendship. And it was complicated and it was complex. But, boy, if she was with you to the end. And I just urge people to read her stuff as much as possible. The thing about, and, of course, this all begins, the journey begins, as with Mika, at Madeira. And Joe and I have talked about this before. The only women in life I'm genuinely afraid of all went to Madeira. That was the common denominator. One is Mika, the other is Julia. And it's just her career began.
You have long called Mika Bar. A loving comparison to Barbara Bush's fierceness, but also there is a good bit of fear in there. But yes, these two Madeira women both had one thing in common. They both knew the headmistress who didn't miss when she aimed her gun.
And do either of you want to have the crime of passion debate right now?
No, we don't. But John, talk about how Julia's career started at Newsweek regarding Madeira and feared Madeira women.
So it was Tuesday, March 11th, 1980. Julia was a sophomore at Georgetown. She had grown up in the Mississippi Delta. Her daddy, Clark Reed, our hearts go out to Clark and Judy today down in Greenville. It was really the godfather, the founder of the Mississippi Republican Party. He was a key figure in the years of Nixon and Ford and Reagan and the Bushes. And Clark had helped get Julia placed in the Washington Bureau of Newsweek as a telephone operator and library assistant. Giving Julia that much access to information as to being a telephone operator was probably like putting, Putin in charge of our affairs. It just wasn't smart. But she was sort of this perennial intern. But as Howard Feynman and Evan Thomas and Ann McDaniel and others recalled over the weekend, they loved her, and reporters don't love anybody. So she's in her dorm in Georgetown. The phone rings, and Mel Elfin, the Washington bureau chief, has gotten the news that Jean Harris, the headmistress of Madeira School, lover, but not exclusive lover, as it turns out, of Dr. Herman Tarnower, the Scarsdale diet doctor, had found another woman's lingerie in Dr. Tarnower's bedroom and had accidentally shot him 4 times in the chest with a .32 caliber revolver. Julia gets up. She knew the guards at the gates of Madeira because she had snuck out so often as a student. So they knew her. She had the shibboleth. She had the password. And she goes in and does this amazing reporting on Jean Harris. This was, for folks who don't remember it, this was not quite OJ, but it was a big story.
It was big.
The murder of the Scarsdale diet doctor. And Julia just does what she did then, what she would continue to do. She took the human condition in all its complexity and all its just craziness and told the story, and that inimitable voice. And that's the thing about Julia. What you like, great writers, Shelby Foote once said this to Walker Percy, great writers teach you how to see. It's a great phrase. They teach you how to see. And Julia had the remarkable gift of being able to take you to a world to which she had access, but you didn't. But because she saw it, you could see it. And that's the greatest gift a writer can give, and it's the greatest gift a friend can give.
Yeah, and in your obituary, in your remembrance of Julia, you noted that Julia had said after that she felt bad for the poor doctor, that she had to begin her career this way, but not that bad.
Yeah, well,
not that bad.
Crime of passion.
Not that bad.
And Jean Harris was
the other great,
beloved.
Well, the other great story which she broke, and Julia is also, I think, the only person in America who could prompt, I received notes this weekend from both George W. Bush and Al Gore. And there's not much that brings those two together.
Not much.
But she broke the great story. She broke the great story that early on, I think the 1978 congressional campaign down in Midland, George W. and Laura are driving home after a speech. George W. says, "How'd I do?" And she said, Laura said, "You were terrible." And he then drove into the garage wall. So it was that kind of human detail that she gave us.
Jon Meacham, thank you so much for sharing, and she was amazing.
Yeah,
that does it for us this morning. Jeff Bennett picks up the coverage right now.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.